Okay, so we're going to look this time at the exercises for having a quadratic word problem in factored form. And so let's take a look. And these are just exercises from Khan Academy. So let's block our rotation on this guy and say the number of mosquitoes is a function of the rainfall. Okay, what's the maximum possible number? And so as you look at this, you say, well, what are our zeros? Okay, so we've got a downward facing parabola. And when you look at it, you say, well, one of the zeros is x equals 0. And then looking at the other one, you say, oh, I'm going to get 0 when I have x equals 0 or x equals 4. Okay, so that's when I have no mosquitoes. Well, that seems fairly easy. Then halfway should be 2, right? We say then the midpoint is 2. You think, well, gosh, these are pretty easy. So now we just have to figure out, so this is our rainfall. And this is our millions of mosquitoes. Frightening thought, right? And you say, okay, so let's put in 2. So the number of mosquitoes equals -2 times 2 minus 4 equals -2 times -2 equals 4 million. Okay, well, that was easy, right? Okay, Ricardo's throwing stones off a bridge. Okay, so he's on the bridge. So there he is, right? And he's throwing his stones off down into the water. And so the height above the water, so you say, okay, so this is one where I have time in seconds, and I have height in meters. Okay, so you say, well, you want to read maximum height. You say, well, let's figure out the other things. So let's figure out when it will hit the ground. And you say, well, when x equals 8 or x equals -4. Okay, so we're going there. So 4, 8. So 4, 8. And then you have -4. So the -4 helps you, right? Because you say they're 12 apart. So the height is going to be at 2. So halfway between -4 and 8 is 2. So you say, that's when it's going to reach its maximum height. And you say, well, okay, let's just look at that. So we'll say -5 times 2 minus 8, 2 plus 4. So -5 times -6 times 6 equals, well, it looks like 180, right? So it would be 180. All right. Well, then you might say, well, what's the height? What's the height when it starts? And so he's on this bridge. So you can say -5, 0 minus 8, 0 plus 4 equals -5 times -8 times 4. Well, it's 20 equals 160. So he's at 160 feet, and then it goes up to 180, and then it goes down to the water. And so he's starting on a bridge that's quite high up. He only throws it 20 feet, unlike our friend earlier who threw the ball 30 meters in the air. Okay, so you can see how you're helped by the factored form gives you the zeros, and the vertex is the line of symmetry is going to be halfway between those zeros. So it actually, after a while, you start liking quadratics. They're simpler to solve. This form has some advantages as well. Okay, and remember, we can just put in the 0 to also get where we started, the y-intercept. Let's look at the next problem. Anna dives into a pool off a springboard. Okay, so what's her height in meters? Okay, so how far is she at the time of the dive? So at 0. So we just say, okay, that's easy. We put a 0 in. So we say -5, 0 plus 1, 0 minus 3. So that equals -5 times 1 times -3 equals 15. So she was on a high dive, right, a 15-meter. That's that's higher up than I would want to be. I didn't know they were quite that high. All right, so what's the highest that she gets? Well, let's look at our zeros. So we have x equals -1 or x equals 3. So they're 4 apart. So the halfway between -1 and 3, halfway between is 1. So we say at 1, she reaches her highest point. So we say -5 times 1 plus 1, 1 minus 3. So that's -5 times 2 times -2. So it equals +20. So she gets quite a bit higher, right? So it must be a springboard. Yeah, so she springs up and quite a bit into the air. And when is she in the water again? So at 3, right? So she reaches her highest point a second after the dive, and then 2 seconds later, she hits the water. Okay, so we just answered that last question, right? So you have your zeros. So here she is, right? And we have a 0 at x equals -1. And so then at 1, she has her high point, and then 2, 3. And you see that from the x minus 3 equals 0. So x equals 3. So her height must be 3. So she got up to 20 meters. She was at 15 meters at 0. And at 1 second, she was at 20. Now you ask yourself, where was she at 2? Well, think about that symmetry. So she should have been also at 15. So you see how the speed, see that how much faster it is that last second as she's going down.